The 23rd of February, 2022. In the wee hours of the morning, a mother is roused from sleep by the sounds of footsteps and a slamming door. What she discovers throughout her investigation will have a lasting impact on her. Instead of a dead body, she discovers a single body part in plain sight. The murder of a young man has appalled friends, family, and police detectives alike, who believe it was carried out as part of a nasty game of hide-and-seek with the victim's body. You won't believe what happened in this situation. We have never seen something on this scale of pure evil and tragedy. Before we begin, we'd want to extend our sympathies to the loved ones of Shad Thyrion, whose life was cut tragically short by the actions of a single terrible person acting on their own selfish and twisted desires. Green Bay, Wisconsin, is a small city with a population of roughly 110,000, located about 100 miles from Milwaukee. Shad Thyrion lived in the modest metropolis as well. According to his biographers, 1997's Shad was a kind guy who never found his calling since he was always wandering around. He helped his parents and grandparents run the family business. His two main interests in life were gaming and woodcarving, at which he was reputed to have excelled. Shad had his issues, but that's the case for a lot of people who don't strive for anything. He battled multiple drug addictions, all of which negatively impacted his health and, by extension, his way of life. Shad did not earn the doom that was going to befall him, no matter how he lived his life. Date and time in 2022, February 23rd at 3:25 a.m. His mother discovers his body, a young man of 24. As she was taking a stroll through her house, she noticed something out of the ordinary, a bucket at the base of the stairs, draped in a beach towel. When the woman pulls back the towel to check for contents, she finds the horrible discovery. The severed head of her dead kid stands above her. His eyes were wide and unseeing, and he wore a blank expression of dread on his bloodied face. Tara Pekanich, Shad's mom, dialed 911 right away. The police showed up soon. This was an extremely rare phone call for them to get. When they examined the bucket, they saw that the head wasn't the only thing inside. In addition to the two knives, there were also what seemed to be the discarded remains of an internal organ. The police immediately began searching the house, beginning with Shad's bedroom, for clues and to make sure there was no more danger to life. It was immediately obvious that this room was the crime site. Blood soaked the bedroom's mattress. Since major arteries had been severed, blood probably gushed everywhere, including the walls, the floor, and the shower. How, though, did he meet such a tragic end? The rest of his body disappeared. Shad didn't seem to have any enemies despite his decisions in life. Then, who would have motive to kill him and why? Decapitate him in the most gruesome and inhumane way possible, as if he were being put to death for a crime committed in the Middle Ages. Without a doubt, Shad's mother was shattered. The police, however, needed to go to work without delay. Given the extreme savagery of the murder, the first 24 hours of the inquiry are crucial. It's possible that someone who demonstrated such irrationality once could do so again. Tara reported that between 2:30 and 3 a.m., she awakened up to the sound of a door slamming shut. She didn't give it much thought because she knew Shad's girlfriend wouldn't be arriving home that early. Because someone was strolling about with a light on, Tara couldn't go back to sleep. When she walked up to turn out the light, she saw another light had been left on in the basement. When she went down to the basement, she found her son's severed head in a pail at the foot of the steps. Tara said she last saw her son alive the night before at 8:30 p.m. Between then and when her son's body was discovered, she had no idea who might have visited him. In truth, only his girlfriend Taylor Schabusiness paid him regular visits. Another Green Bay, Wisconsin native, Taylor Schabusiness, was 25 years old. She and Warren Schabusiness had been married for a while, but theirs wasn't what you'd call a happy or stable marriage. Her spouse knew she was a habitual adulterer because she had been caught cheating on him numerous times. Warren was reportedly in jail when she gave birth to their son, leading to widespread speculation that the child was actually the product of an extramarital affair. Their son had been taken away from them somewhat suddenly and placed in the full-time care of a grandparent, which speaks volumes about the priorities of Warren and Taylor and, maybe, the instability of their home life. Perhaps her tumultuous upbringing contributed to her subsequent volatility. Taylor's mother passed away when she was still a little child. Thus, her father raised her alone. The term father is used quite loosely in our culture. In actuality, he was not a father figure to her at all and instead sexually molested her frequently throughout her life. Constant abuse like this can cause people to develop deep-seated problems, traumas, and even sex addictions that last well into adulthood. Taylor is, according to a buddy, a total sex junkie. Tara claimed that she and Shad had seen Taylor at the residence late on the 22nd and early on the 23rd. This was common, as we discussed before. Shad did, after all, refer to Taylor, who was married, as his girlfriend, despite the fact that they were simply having an affair. The issue was that Tara had never actually seen Taylor in person. Taylor's van was the only identifying feature Tara could recall about her, and by the time police arrived, it had already left the property at around 3 a.m. There wasn't much information offered to the authorities investigating this case. Muffled voices from a bedroom, but no one could positively identify them, and a possible girlfriend who might be in the property but had not been seen. They had no choice but to focus their initial efforts on Taylor because she was the only person whose name had been mentioned. 2 cops sped around the corner to Taylor's house right away. The van Tara had mentioned was waiting for them outside. While there is now insufficient evidence to bring charges against anyone, it would have been in everyone's best interest if law enforcement had begun eliminating potential suspects as soon as possible. But Taylor was about to do something very out of character and incredibly useful for the investigation. She was about to put herself in the spotlight. The cops arrived at the house and immediately began peering out the windows in search of the van to which Tara had referred. Taylor, naturally alarmed by the early morning eyes on her car, steps outside to confront the persons she saw but didn't realize were police. She wore a black hoodie and sweatpants. She recognized them as law enforcement instantly and remained silent. The officers' flashlights illuminated her, revealing dried blood on her hands and smears of blood down the front and back of her sweatshirt. Taylor was questioned by police about where the blood had come from. Her response was cool, but nonetheless startling. "For the simple reason that I have an arrest warrant," she said. The policemen are taken away by her response and promptly transport her to the downtown police station to question her further. She has wounds and scratches all over her hands and arms, which are clearly visible in the interview room's fluorescent lighting. Taylor said she had self-inflicted such wounds when questioned about them. The cops started questioning her about Shad and the body they found because they couldn't debunk her narrative at this point. She admitted that she knew Shad, but claimed ignorance of his untimely demise, calling it pretty fucked up. When questioned further, she claimed that her roommate actually owned the van she was driving. The police thought Shad was her roommate because their initials, SP, were so similar. Strangely coincidental. However, she did confess that she was the van's driver on the way back from Tara's. After discovering Shad's head, police immediately began examining Taylor's and Tara's properties for any other remains. "Where is the rest of the body?" Taylor was questioned. She merely replied, "In the basement." She responds, "Good question," and claims she was unconscious during the entire traumatic event. However, the truth quickly emerged and she contradicted herself by describing what had truly occurred. Taylor claims that she, Shad, and a mutual friend went drug shopping, returned to her place, and spent the afternoon using cannabis before switching to methamphetamine after their friend left. Soon after, under the influence of drugs to an extreme degree, the two of them proceeded to Shad's mother's house and into his basement bedroom. Apparently, Shad then produced 2 chains for the couple to engage in their, interactions. Taylor claimed that this behavior was common throughout their frequent sexual encounters, and that the shackles were simply a reminder of the past. She fessed up that she was responsible for Shad's bloody cough by tightening the chains around his neck. At this point, it's important to bring out that Taylor hasn't shown any sorrow or shame. She was talking coolly and sensibly, as if nothing had happened and bloody coughs during intimate slumber were the usual. She persisted and candidly told the police that she enjoyed it. She thought, "In for a penny, in for a pound." She told the police, "I had already gone that far, so I didn't see any reason to stop. He died between 3 and 5 minutes later. I just wanted to find out what he looked like." Taylor claimed she suddenly had amnesia following this, Have you ever loved something so much that you want to kill it? She asked the police in a very menacing tone. Then, in a dark and twisted twist of irony, Taylor forgets she's supposed to be amnestic and recalls in detail what occurred following Shad's death. Taylor: I spent something like 2 or 3 hours playing with his body. She claimed she kept trying to have sexual relations with the dead body. It's unclear why she was so forthcoming with details of these necrophilic deeds of horror. The investigators for the police force thought she could try to use an insanity defense. Let's be fair, she was making a fairly compelling case for her insanity. Rather than escalating her aggression against the police, Taylor turned it inward, saying, "The head. I can't believe I left the head behind. You guys are going to have fun trying to find all the other organs, but I think there's a leg in the van." She was then asked what she used to dismember the body. "I used knives from the kitchen. Some didn't work very well, but the bread knife, yeah, it worked the best. I think it must have been the serrated edge. The knives are in a bag in the basement along with a few body parts. Whatever bags you find will probably have some body parts in them. I just used whatever I could see at the time." After hearing her story, police officers headed directly towards the vehicle. Inside, they discovered a limb and other body parts in various bags and a crock pot, precisely as she had described. They discovered a lot more, too. Taylor had made a remark to the effect that the police would enjoy the hunt for the organs. But she was wrong. They discovered the internal organs and other bloody knives in a plastic storage tub inside the van. Let's rewind a bit here. As Taylor's anxiety grew over losing the head, she also explained this to officers. "I did intend to clean up the scene as best I could. I saw the blood in the shower, all over the floor and bed, but to be honest, cutting up a body and moving all the different parts from the basement to the van was harder than I thought. In the end, I just got lazy. I couldn't be bothered carrying anything else or cleaning up. I didn't mean to kill him. It just happened in the heat of the moment. Things went a little too far." The officer then asked Taylor if she thought it was the right thing to do, to which she replied, "No, but I did it anyway." Investigators were still combing through the 2 houses and the van, but they didn't need to find anything else to press charges against Taylor. After the interrogation was over, she was led to a desk and charged with first-degree murder, mutilation of a corpse, and sexual assault. After the fact, authorities learned that Taylor was already on probation due to her conviction for intimidating a police officer a month prior. The Brown County Sheriff's Office arrested her and booked her into jail with a $2 million bond. That's right, she was hopeless in terms of posting bond. Law enforcement officials kept combing through Taylor's various social media accounts and other digital footprints. They discovered a very cryptic post made by Shad 2 days before he was killed, something that is increasingly typical in modern police because to the widespread use of social media among people of all ages. It said, "How could this happen to someone? How could you do it to someone? Goodbye. I don't like where this went." So far, police have been unable to determine the post's intended target. Nonetheless, they are confident that it is Taylor. Maybe it was something she did to him a few days before while they were playing out a fantasy together. Or maybe it was something he saw Taylor do to someone else. Taylor may have killed another person in the same manner in front of Shad, making him a witness and therefore explaining why she felt the need to kill him just a few days later. The only individual who knew the answers is no longer here to tell the tale. People who knew Taylor may attest to the fact that she was fascinated by another Wisconsin serial killer, Jeffrey Dahmer. Dahmer, like Taylor's M.O., was responsible for the deaths of 17 men, most of whom he strangled to death before dismembering their remains. She kept Dahmer memorabilia and watched hours of documentaries about his crimes. Taylor was clearly obsessed with that ill person, and her actions may have been a manifestation of a fantasy she shared with another person she perversely idolized. Taylor showed up for her plea hearing and, bizarrely, pleaded not guilty to murdering Shad. Only someone with Taylor's damaged mental state could understand how she could possibly believe she could avoid the consequences of her actions. In May of 2023, her trial would begin. The trial was set to begin on February 14, 2023. But her attorney, Quinn Jolly, filed a motion asking the judge, Thomas Walsh, to postpone it so that more time could be taken to gather evidence, prepare the defense's case, and reassess Taylor's mental fitness to stand trial. Just as the judge kindly granted Jolly's request, Taylor did something really unusual. She had been sitting to the left of the lawyer when she suddenly swung her right elbow at him, urgently trying to hit him in the face. Even though one bailiff was able to get her to the floor, it took two more to keep her there. She quickly reverted to her usual state of composure. Mr. Jolly has now filed a motion with the court to recuse himself. It's understandable that he won't continue to speak for Taylor's Schabusiness. Those who are unlucky enough to be Taylor's representatives will have their hands full. It's safe to assume that after hearing what the abuse Quinn Jolly received for his efforts, most lawyers would be hesitant to even sit face to face. Taylor Schabusiness will likely never walk the streets again and will instead spend the rest of her life in prison, which is good news for law-abiding inhabitants of Wisconsin. The one bright side for Taylor is that she is in Wisconsin, which has been the only state in the United States to abolish the death penalty for longer than any other. As of 1853, it was no longer in effect. Shad's family has been quite quiet about her incarceration. After Taylor's arrest, Shad's uncle made a brief statement on the family's behalf. Yesterday, we were given some devastating news. Shad Thyrion, my nephew, was taken from us by what I can only assume is a monster. Shad had a good heart and soul. We love you so much and can't even begin to describe what we are feeling. Shad's entire future was wide open. He was a young man of 24 at most. Though his life was not heading in the right direction when he passed away, he still had plenty of time to make amends with his loved ones and restore their respect for him. Taylor Schabusiness, who is plainly deranged in her ability to control her fury and sexual desires, has taken it away from him in the most horrific manner possible. The family of a son, nephew, and grandchild must now face the reality that he will never return home. His place at the family table will always remain empty, even though he will never again share in the joy of birthdays, Thanksgivings, or Christmases. Shad Thyrion, I pray you rest in peace.